So we're tracking an interesting development in the clean tech space. Northstar Clean Technologies has a facility in Calgary that's turning old asphalt shingles into reusable materials, keeping them out of landfills and putting them back into the supply chain. They've hit a major operational milestone and they're releasing announcements on supply contracts. Here to discuss what this means for the company and investors is Aidan Mills, Northstar's president and CEO. So, Aidan, congrats on reaching this milestone. Specifically, it's 80 tons per day that you're producing. Walk us through why this specific threshold was critical for the company.
Sure. Well, listen, great to be back. Good to see you again. Yeah, look, as we think about, as you think about clean tech startups, or you think about any startup, I mean, there's a number of critical phases that you have to go through to make it successful. So firstly, you have to discover the technology and start to develop it. Secondly, you have to develop your pilot plan, which of course we did, and you know the story here. We did that in Delta in BC. And then you have to design, engineer, construct, and commission your first facility, your first commercial facility. And that's what we've done in Calgary. And one of the critical steps for that is actually demonstrating first production at that facility. And the 80 tons a day is a really important step. And why it's a really important step is one of the major funders for the development here in Calgary was Emissions Reduction Alberta. So in Emissions Reduction Alberta, they awarded us $7.1 million, but it was all milestone driven. So they just didn't write us the check and they're like, thanks very much. They actually said, okay, there's like 4 milestones you have to hit. So the first milestone was completing engineering, and tick, obviously we've done that. Second milestone was to complete construction, tick, we've done that. And the third milestone, which was their independent assessment of us moving from commissioning into operation, was the 80 tons a day. And that's why that milestone was really critical. Not only does it kind of demonstrate that the facility is operating, but it's also an independent assessment done by Emissions Reduction Alberta. So when funders hear, well, there's an independent assessment that said, yeah, it's running, that's why it's such an important milestone. And then the fourth milestone with them, which is still subject to review, is full operation. And that will be, sometime, it's pretty much 6 months after milestone 3. So that's milestone 4 that we can look to next year.
What kind of revenue goals do you have kind of projected in place with this processing milestone reached?
Well, so now it's all about, having hit that milestone, now it's all about continuing the ramp up of the facility. And of course, delivering products out the back end. So shingles come in the front end and we get paid a tipping fee for that. So all the inventory we receive, we get paid for. But of course, the major economic benefit is from the sale of the products out the back end. And that's aggregate, fiberglass, limestone, and most importantly, asphalt. And so we're expecting that to happen now here in Q4, and as we roll into next year, and so we should be able to demonstrate revenue from the facility in 2025, and obviously building on that as the steady state ramps up in 2026.
Well, you know your business, and you must know what your shareholders expect. What do you think your shareholders are most excited for now, and what are you most excited to deliver on now?
Well, look, I think as I kind of touched on in the first question, the most important thing for any new technology is demonstrating that the technology works. I think once people see that, they're like, okay, great, the technology works now. Where are the financials? And so I think people are really looking forward to us being able to demonstrate over the next number of quarters financial performance from an operating facility. I think that's the first thing with respect to kind of like Calgary itself. I think the second thing they're now expecting is, okay, well, as we've said, we have this market is so huge that we have the ability to roll these facilities out all through North America. So I think shareholders are kind of like, and what does the development plan look like, and how's the rollout going? So I think we're in a great position in 2026 whereby we can constantly look to how Calgary's performing. And that's a demonstration that this is no longer a technology question. This is a how fast can you roll these plants out question. So that I think is what is exciting shareholders. This is what shareholders are telling me that it's exciting them today. They're like, okay, technology de-risk, great. Plant operating, great. Let's see the financials, and then how quickly can we deliver on the rest of the plants?
Well, on the note of the rollout, you've announced a supply contract with the city of Calgary.
Yep.
It's planned for about 5 years for waste shingle supply. How does this support your business, your strategy? Can this sort of contract be seen across other cities in the country?
Yeah, so I think there's two things with respect to the City of Calgary agreement that that we announced the signature of today. So what that agreement basically does is it basically says for the next 5 years, for every shingle that's collected at Calgary landfills, that Northstar will get that as feedstock for our facility. So today we have feedstock coming in from ICO, the shingle manufacturer, and we have feedstock coming in from Eco Recycling, who are like they're an industrial collector in Calgary as well. And so those two contracts exist today. So the city of Calgary adds a third contract to that feedstock supply. And basically what it does is it more than exceeds the 40,000 tons that we need at the Calgary facility to run a single day shift. So obviously it underpins the economics, it underpins the supply. But exactly to your question, what it also demonstrates to any municipality that's, who we're engaged with from a Northstar perspective, it demonstrates we have the capability to divert their municipal waste and their municipal shingle waste away from their landfills to Northstar facilities. So it's a huge vote of confidence for a huge vote of confidence for Northstar's facility in Calgary that the city of Calgary has entered into this agreement because it's a template for what we can do in other cities as well. So very, very exciting, not only from obviously a feedstock supply perspective for the Calgary facility, but very exciting for the strategy going forward.
Well, this sort of segues into what I think is a good question, which is on expansion, how that looks like. I think we talked about this in the past, but I guess my first question is, where are you planning to expand?
Yep.
How does your, milestones we just discussed impact that roadmap?
Yep.
And also, do you need to be in specific cities to have, be operating in those cities as well?
So I think the kind of 10,000 foot, kind of answer to that is yes to all of that. Essentially, if a city has over 1.5 million people or 1.5 to 2 million people, they will likely have enough shingles going to landfill that we can build a facility. So, I got quoted at the end of last year saying I wanted to be the Tim Hortons of asphalt shingle reprocessing. Maybe in the US it's the Dunkin' Donuts, but basically we can rinse and repeat these facilities all through the cities in North America. Now, if you think about the size, about 1.5 of the 16.5 million tons of shingles going to landfill every year, directed to landfill every year, about 1.5 million in Canada and about 15 million in the US. So clearly, the biggest market, of course, is in the US. And that's what we're planning along with expansion in Canada. So the next two facilities, first, as we chatted about before, first is in Ontario, in Hamilton and Ontario, site selected, permitting started, etc. And then in the US, we've chosen the state, we've chosen the city, but we haven't announced it yet because the site negotiations aren't completed. But we're hoping to do that in the next month or so here. So I think as we come out of this year, again, 10,000 foot perspective from an investor perspective, we've demonstrated Calgary's complete. It's commissioned. It's ramping up operation. It'll be demonstrating financials, and we should have a clear view of the next two facilities that will be in full permitting by the end of the year.
Now, keeping things out of our landfills, focusing on working on environmental issues is, I think, on anyone's radar, a good thing.
Yep.
And what's cool here is that you're still focused on delivering profit.
Right.
But can you give us a sense of the scale of the problem you're solving and what success would look like for Northstar?
Yeah, I mean, so when you go back to that kind of 16.5 million tons of shingles every year, kind of destined for landfill, I mean, that's more than 20 million barrels of oil. And so if you think about one of our facilities, even running 24/7 is 80,000 tons processed per year. I mean, clearly that would be anywhere between, 200 to 400 facilities, which is just a massive market. Um, Realistically, we think we have the capability to be rolling out kind of, 2 to 3 plants per year, from an organic perspective. So our view of being at, 20 to 30 facilities by the end of the decade, that's an achievable target. Now there are ways that we could accelerate that. And there are ways that we could accelerate it both in terms of time and scale. And we're always looking at that. But the fundamental point really is you have to have an operating facility. And as we come out of 2025, that's exactly what we've got. We've got an operating facility. We've got the next two. We've got the next two, sites identified. We have the portfolio of sites, identified after that as well. And I think the really important thing is how you kick this off is, even though this isn't, the market is so big, and the diversion away from landfill is so good, like the Calgary announcement today, so good for municipalities. This has to be profitable. So this is not. This is an enterprise that is like a manufacturing business that has huge environmental upside. This is a waste to value business that benefits not only landfills, not only diversion, but also delivers profit. So that for us is a great, as you said earlier, like that's a great template to build on. And so now with the technology de-risked, it's just how fast can we roll that out?
Right. Well, my one last follow-up to that is,
Sure.
if it's profitable, if it's good for the environment, what's, kind of the hurdle or any sort of barrier that you might have to work through with municipalities, with any other party to get your tech rolled out across the country?
I mean, to be honest, all the conversations we've had have been positive ones. We haven't really met a barrier yet. When you go to a municipality and say, listen, I can build a facility that if I run it 24/7, I can divert 80,000 tons of shingles away from your landfill. And and out the back of that, in a profitable way, I'll employ 20 to 30 people. It'll be profitable, it'll pay taxes, and all of the products that come out of this are circular, and can be used in industry. And the industrial partners are like, well, that's excellent. It's another form of supply. So if you think about, Canada, and you think about the US, and you think about, the, kind of hydrocarbon independence, I mean, we have an independent way of producing asphalt in local regions, and other products that can be used industrially. So again, diverts away from landfill, but has products that are widely used in industry.
Right, back into the supply chain.
Exactly, completely circular, profitable, completely circular, and supported by municipalities like Calgary because you're diverting away from their landfill.
Well, appreciate you being here on the heels of your timely news.
Yep.
Aidan, we'll see you again for another update.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Thanks as always.
Northstar is roof on on the TSXV. Full ticker symbols where they're traded are below for you. Thanks for watching.